Welcome back to another episode of Dungeon Hammer. I am your host, Gershwin, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
Docile Creature.
And the Sound Alchemist.
And today we're talking about character alignment in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. Something that, when I first started playing D&D, I thought was ridiculous and stupid, and now I think, like, oh shit, like, we should really use it.
Really?
We'll get into that. We'll get into that.
So let's break down exactly what the character chart or the alignment chart looks like in Dungeons & Dragons. For all those people that just started playing and they don't know too much, how could you explain it?
So it's a 9 squared, think of it as a Punnett square, so to speak. You have your chaotics on one side, your neutrals, your lawfuls, and essentially it's like a chart to gauge how much on one side your personality aligns to.
Yeah, so there's lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good, lawful neutral, true neutral, chaotic neutral, lawful evil, neutral evil, chaotic evil.
So I think it would be really good to go through each individual Punnett square.
I guess you could call it that.
Or cubicle, and actually like break down exactly what it means to be lawfully good, which is what we're starting off with.
Yeah, so lawfully good, when I think of that, I think of like a goody two-shoes, like the knight, the Boy Scout, Superman, essentially.
So I think it would be really cool to go through at least like really quickly, like each individual class.
Oh, and then
what would this class be like if it was lawfully good? When you think lawfully good, you think of like a paladin. What is a lawfully good paladin? He's just basically like
pretty much standard paladin, like you're upholding righteous justice and
Yeah.
But the important thing in the lawfully good square that's different from all the other ones, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's that you are following the rules to the letter. You're not really throwing in your own 2 cents. This is a pre-established thing, and you're following the law to that extent. Even if, let's say the law is actually you're in a demon world or a demon plane, and the law is that you have to squirt inside of everybody's eyeballs at least once a day.
wow.
Like, that paladin has to do that.
Yep, there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
It doesn't matter if it takes 20 minutes or an hour. Has it ever taken 20 minutes for anybody?
At that point, I just
that's
give up.
a long time.
It's just like, let's pick up after lunch.
Yeah.
But am I right to say that is what that is, lawfully good?
I think that is a version of lawful good, yes. Right. Something that I think people get hung up on is like the lawful stupid archetype where like you said, you have to obey the rules no matter what, blah, 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 blah. But lawful good can also refer to a code. That doesn't have to necessarily be the law of the land. So if you're part of an organization that has a code, I don't kill women, I don't kill children, blah, 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 that can also be what makes you lawful.
So for a rogue, it's like if you have the Assassin's Code deal.
Okay. Or the Thieves Guild, like
Bounty
I only
hunter.
steal from the rich and I give to the poor, that kind of thing. I live by that code, so you could be considered lawful in that
So then,
situation.
if you steal from the rich and give to the poor, eventually the poor become rich. So then do you steal from them again?
Absolutely. It's a vicious cycle.
It is.
And then, so what other classes would you categorize? Like, so let's say for the tough ones, the wizard, the rogue, or not the rogue, sorry, the wizard, the sorcerer, and what's the other magic guy?
Warlock.
Warlock. Well, how would a lawfully good warlock look like?
Well, he's following his patron's wishes.
Yeah. Like,
That's essentially his code.
Yep. You have, like you said, a set of rules that your patron has passed down that you have to follow. Or if you wanted to go the more traditional route, you are a celestial warlock and you're a good guy. Like, you follow the laws, uphold righteous justice, similar to a paladin, except for you're more arcane magic, instead of sword and board smiting the evildoers.
And then when you're looking at like a fighter, a barbarian, the savage, the damage dealers, what would a lawfully good guy look like?
I think it's similar to paladin, just no spells.
Mm-hmm.
You're either a town guard for a fighter or a barbarian, or a mercenary that has that code of conduct kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because even thinking like the Sith, they have the code of 2 that they don't break. So essentially, they could be
Lawfully
they could
good.
be
Lawful.
not necessarily good,
but
lawful.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's a good segue then to look at another. Is there? Yeah, lawfully neutral, for example.
Yeah.
What is the difference? Like, how would you distinguish between lawfully good and lawfully neutral?
So maybe the town guard would kind of be a little better for this example, because where lawful good follows the law and leans towards being good. Maybe the code that they follow is good, like they don't steal, they don't murder, they don't do any of that stuff. But lawful neutral is strictly what the law.
Yeah.
Like they are whatever the law says, whatever their code of conduct is, whether it's good or evil, in any situation, they follow the law.
Essentially a judge.
Yeah, they would. I assume they would try to be as impartial as possible. If the law requires the population not get so high, and your higher ups order you to go murder some orphans, that's what the law states. That's what I've been commanded to do. Whether that's an evil act, but I got to do it. Or if you got to go save some orphans, okay, sure, that's what I got to do because the law says.
How would that look like in the classes then? Like, what would a lawfully neutral wizard look like?
What popped in my head is like the laws of magic almost. Like they are beholden to
the Neil deGrasse Tysons of the world.
Sure, or like the maybe their Arcane Academy or their the organization that they're a part of has a code. I imagine for some reason a lot of these lawful alignments. I imagine there's an organization or something, but I guess that doesn't necessarily have to be true. It could be an internal code,
yeah,
or internal law that you live by. Druid, the laws of nature.
Okay.
Or the law of natural selection or survival of the fittest, might makes right.
Yep.
That kind of stuff.
Religion plays a big thing. You got to follow the 10 Commandments to the T.
Yep.
So connecting it to like 40K, so would you guys say like an orc is lawfully neutral?
No, probably neutral evil, I would say. Orcs.
And the reason,
or chaotic evil.
And for all those that don't know, like an orc is just like a savage, brutal alien who just thinks about killing.
Yeah, they live for battle.
What would make him not, is it because he lacks law?
I think it's because they tend towards evil naturally.
Oh, okay.
Like they don't, they're not lawful, and I don't know. You guys would know a lot more about this than me, but they don't seem like someone that a species that has like a hierarchy or like a
they have
caste
a hierarchy
that's strict.
It's based on might.
Makes
so essentially,
sense.
the stronger you are, the more up on that totem you are.
So they would be more neutral, but maybe not lawful.
Yes, because when I think of lawful, I think of like justice. And when it comes to like orcs, I don't think they even care about justice. They're just out for the thrill of the fight.
Or even like when they're in a fight, do they follow certain
it's like
criteria? It's just an all out brawl.
Yeah,
more chaotic. That's where I would put them.
Okay, and then just so we get a better understanding then of that whole lawful, what is a lawful evil?
The overlord,
the tyrant,
the dictator.
Is that where the Sith comes in?
Yeah,
where it's like they're following the rule of two, but it's sadistic because it's like you're really killing and murdering everybody else.
And this is the good point where against lawful good, where they don't necessarily have to follow the law. Lawful evil, they definitely don't, or if they do, it's to their own ends.
Yeah,
and they lean towards doing evil things within the confines of the law. But this is definitely more code of a personal code kind of thing, because if you're evil, well, that's not necessarily true. I guess it's just as likely that a lawful evil character could follow the law. They're just doing, like I said, they're loopholes, or they're stretching it just thin enough that they can get away with this evil stuff.
So you're thinking of like Samuel L. Jackson from Training Day. That's a lawfully evil person. Is that true?
I'm assuming you haven't seen Training Day.
You are assuming correctly.
Oh, okay. So he's basically, it turns out, spoiler alert, he's the drug kingpin.
Kingpin, yeah.
And he's also a police officer. So, like, is that...
Because he's using his knowledge of the law to his advantage to keep doing evil things.
Or like in a Ravnica campaign, the Orzhov, they're lawful, but
they're the nobility.
They kind of write loopholes into the law or they attempt to get laws passed that'll favor them heavily.
So it seems that evil then really describes egotistical, self-interest.
Often, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Like Teddy Roosevelt. Oh, we're in war. I'm going to be president for 20 years.
Or like for Game of Thrones, or any kind of political campaign trying to get in power by murdering your rivals and stuff like that.
You can't take my chair if you're dead.
Whereas like somebody who's neutral would be more trying to get control through like the previous rituals and previous like standards.
Neutral or lawful neutral?
Yeah, would that be lawfully?
They would they would probably have to. It'd be harder for a lawful neutral to try to ascend politically. I imagine
because they're still following the rules of politics to get that.
They would have to. Yeah, they would have to somehow align themselves with the law to ascend.
Yeah. I'm thinking probably Eddard Stark, because like he didn't really go out and kill anybody.
He seems more good to me.
Is he? You wouldn't say he's neutral?
I feel like he was always trying to. He was like the naive character in Game of Thrones that like.
But that's because he was
saw the good
following. Well, I guess that's right. Because if you're chaotic good, that almost has like a naivety to it, where you're following the rules regardless if you agree with them or not.
Yeah, and also something that's important that I think is, if a character is lawful neutral, or lawful any of these alignments, it doesn't necessarily mean that every decision that character makes has to follow that alignment. Because Eddard Stark was part of a rebellion against the crown.
True.
That's definitely not lawful. That'd be chaotic or whatever, or something like that. But I don't think that defined his whole character. Like on the whole, I think he was more of a lawful good character. But like I said, just because your character has lawful good written on it doesn't necessarily mean every decision
I think
to be
the
lawful
one
good.
thing that I could think of making him not be considered 100% good is that one time in the first episode where he beheads the dude for saying, "Oh, there's whites."
That's definitely a lawful neutral act. Like the law says, I gotta behead you for abandoning the Night's Watch, regardless of the circumstances. You broke the law of the Night's Watch, or so off with your head.
Yep. So yeah, just because you fall into a category doesn't mean you're stuck in that category.
And now I think it would be really good to like really look at the opposite of the lawful side of the things. So if we were to go to chaotic good compared to lawfully good, what is the huge difference between, like, obviously the key thing is good,
right?
But what is lawfully good?
I think the best example is Robin Hood.
Yep.
He's going against the law to bring those in poverty to an equal standing.
Or he just pull them out of poverty kind of thing because they know they're being oppressed.
Right, because he knows the rules of the land, and he knows he's doing something that's not considered quote-unquote good. So he's doing this for the betterment of society, I guess.
Where I think lawful good is kind of like the needs of the many opposed to the needs of one.
Right.
Chaotic good is the needs of one.
As opposed to the many.
Yeah. The chaotic good character isn't necessarily for the greater good. They can be, absolutely, but their actions are going to be more... They're going to do whatever it takes to achieve good, where lawful wouldn't necessarily do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at someone like chaotically neutral as opposed to lawfully neutral...
They just don't care about the law. They're going to do what they want to do regardless if it's considered good or evil.
Yeah. They're gonna walk the line of good and evil, and I see chaotic neutral as kind of a self-centered, whereas lawful neutral is kind of I follow the law no matter what. Chaotic neutral is whatever's good for me in this situation. I'm going to do it regardless of the law, regardless of good or evil.
Yeah.
They're kind of the more self-centered.
It's like, oh, you want me to kill orphans? I kill them, but I get to loot their
What am I going to get from it? Kind of like, are you going to pay me a lot or what?
It's like the person you, like a sellsword. They don't care if you're killing for good, for evil, for country, for land.
The absolute mercenary,
Yeah, they're just mercenaries. They do what they got to do for their own interests.
And then finally, the chaotic evil.
These are the people that just want to watch the world burn.
See, I feel like that's an archetype, or that's a generalization, like the insane mad person that just murders everybody that they come across. But I'd feel like you could play a chaotic evil character in a campaign and not just have the players just hate you. Because if you think about it, chaotic good, they'll do whatever it takes for their ends or to achieve good outside of the law. I feel like chaotic evil is similar to that. They're going to do whatever it takes to better themselves outside of the law. I think that's the base level of chaotic evil. So it doesn't necessarily mean I murder everybody I see, everybody I don't like, I have to kill them, and I don't play by any rules and stuff like that. You can definitely play a character like that, but it might become a lot to deal with for everybody else at the table.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it necessarily has to be that. Something I've thought about once we realized we're going to talk about this is chaotic evil is... I would never consider playing chaotic evil until I actually sat down and thought about it and said how you could actually play chaotic evil and get along with everybody in the party. Because think about people that you know in your own life. I don't know do you know any chaotic evil people?
Yes.
And can you get along with them?
Well, they're in prison.
Well,
So I did at one point.
well, there you go. The point I'm trying to make is that, like, if there's chaotic people in the real world that aren't just out murdering people and doing whatever they want to better their own selves, you can do the same thing in D&D.
So I guess the difference would be then if you have a chaotic evil person, they are bettering themselves, but they're making sure to do it in a way that's going to hurt others. Is that what you're saying?
They don't have to,
Right.
but yeah, they're not opposed to it. Like, they're not gonna not do something because it's evil. They don't have that they don't have a line that they won't cross, but they don't have to cross it constantly.
But so what you're saying is that they would prefer to hurt others like if the option was like you can benefit from this action and not hurt that person, that the chaotic evil will always choose to hurt that person along with benefiting from it. Is that what you're saying?
So you're saying like, oh, here's $1 million, and it's like, or you can have $1 million if you punch this person.
The chaotically evil person be like, yeah, I'm gonna punch the person and take the $1 million.
Right.
You can.
Yeah.
I don't.
Because then otherwise, like, what's the difference between the
neutral,
and
yeah.
the evil?
I think the difference is chaotic evil. If you can get $1 million, but you have to overcome this obstacle. And it's this. If a chaotic good, they do it in a good way. Neutral, they do it however way is the easiest. Chaotic evil, they do it the easiest and most evil way. They take the easiest path, but they're not afraid to get their hands dirty. So if you, for example, if you said, here's $1 million, or you can $1 million and punch this guy, I don't think they would automatically just punch the dude and get $1 million because the easiest route is just take the money. But if you said you had to punch this guy in order to do it, they'd punch him easily or kill him or whatever. A chaotic good might be like, okay, let's try to think of a way that we can get this money without having to punch this guy. Maybe we attack the dude that's doing this scenario in the first place, stuff like that.
So then what would you classify those, like, quote unquote, like mustache twirling villains that are just evil to be evil?
Definitely chaotic good, but I don't think those characters are necessarily good characters.
No, they're just there to be.
They're boring to me.
Yeah.
Like they're if they don't have good motivation, then
It's like, oh, you want to blow up the world?
why?
Why?
Yeah,
You're
you
in
live
this
on this world. Yeah.
Well, but what about the Joker, the most probably
Chaotic
interesting
evil, yeah.
person? So he would be chaotic evil.
I think so.
Yes.
So he's trying to watch the world burn just for the hell of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's definitely on the more evil, like super evil spectrum. Like I think he would punch the dude and then take the money for sure.
Okay, so then I guess that is a key point that we discovered, that even within each individual, like lawfully good, chaotic evil, there's a spectrum.
Yeah.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Okay.
But this is the kind of grid is just to simplify it a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's get into like the super gray area. Let's start with neutrally good. What is the difference between somebody who is neutrally good as opposed to lawfully good or chaotically good?
The way I see it is that you're usually a vigilante. Like Batman would fall under this.
Definitely.
Because he's good. He's a superhero. You can't say otherwise. But he does this at the expense of the law. Because he knows he has to cross that line to do the utmost good.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that kind of...
Because it's like, oh, look at Gotham City. They need help and the cops aren't cutting it. So I have to, go against the law to help.
But at the end of the day, it's because I'm helping.
Right. That's why you're still lawful.
That's a lot
And
easier
he
to explain.
can also kind of work with the law, work against the law,
Yeah.
which makes him neutral in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So then, neutrally evil.
Oh, we're skipping over just neutral?
I think neutral's probably gonna be the hardest. That's why I wanted to
All
do it
right.
for
Okay.
last.
Neutral evil.
evil.
Same kind of thing. Like they're willing to do whatever it takes to better for their own ends.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the law is. They don't necessarily have to be against the law. They can use the law. They can not use the law, but they're just for whatever to better themselves, and usually tend to be more evil about it.
Right.
They're gonna cut throats. They're gonna murder orphans.
But at
They're
the
gonna
same
bribe
time, they
people.
could use the cops for evil.
Yeah.
Like they could make like a false call, say, "Oh, there's you could swap somebody," essentially.
So like Two-Face.
Yeah.
Well, once he became Two-Face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because he was saying, "Oh, I'm still Harvey Dent," but then he'd be doing evil things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I think the hardest one, true neutral.
That's
What
really
vanilla
difficult.
ass explanation can we come up with that?
True neutral. They are right in the center of the Punnett square.
Mm-hmm.
They can be most of the time. True neutral. You're right. It's hard because
Because they don't.
they're just sponges.
Yeah, they're there. They don't care about being good. They don't care about being evil.
Chaotic or lawful.
Right.
They're kind of just they're just like sponges. They're along for the ride. They'll soak in whatever's around them, but
Yeah.
they're not preferential to any one direction of those.
Yeah, I think Ballin would kind of fall in that because you said you were playing him, but you didn't know what direction to take him in.
Yeah, I only played it for 2 sessions, though, so it's probably not the best, most developed character. But because now that
But I
we're
think
talking about
that's
it,
why, because it wasn't developed. You didn't know which spectrum to fall in.
I feel like we played with somebody who was true neutral. Then we played
Who would that be?
Talia. Like I think like we had a character that it's so moldable, so like I'll do what the party wants to do. I'll twist my morals.
If they
Yeah.
even have any, because true neutral
Doesn't have
morals are
any.
kind of fuzzy.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Because whenever you put something into a moral code,
Mm-hmm.
you're already making
it leans towards good or
Yeah.
lawful.
Hmm.
So you're kind of just
You don't even have something to fall back on and say, "Is this good? Is this something
More of
I
an
should be following?"
amoral creature rather
Yeah.
than a moral creature.
You gotta be like an asexual. Like you don't think about, "Oh, I'm gonna lean towards boys or girls." It's just like
I'll fuck
nothing.
them all.
No, it's the opposite. I don't
I'll
care
fuck
about
them
any of
all.
it. I'm just doing me.
I think a neutral character can still have aspirations. They just achieve it.
Without
They dip
thinking.
into a little bit of everything, but they're not fully invested in evil, good, lawful, or chaotic.
Right.
So they're having fun. They're smashing, but it's a limp
Sure.
shaft that they're playing with.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
That's a fucked up way to live, man.
It's hard to
Um,
think about a true neutral character.
But I feel like then, now that we can get into development and how you could use this chart, I feel like if you are true neutral, you have the most options of like jumping around. But
But
it
I think
almost seems
that's-
like you're out. You have to get out of true neutral if
Yeah.
you're truly trying to develop yourself.
But if we, like I said earlier, not every action should define your alignment, or the other way around, your alignment shouldn't define your every action.
Mm-hmm.
But for true neutral,
That kind of is your driving force.
it's like every action would fall outside of your alignment.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of just sitting there and being like, well, whatever the party wants to do. What I found though is that when I first started playing D&D, I thought this chart is ridiculous because no one's gonna fit that one square. But in terms of the role playing aspect of D&D, I think it's crucial for you to start looking at this chart and really develop your character in that way. Because like the best character that you can play is a character that grows with the campaign.
Yeah.
So starting in one section and then towards like a couple levels, moving towards like the other direction or a different direction is probably one of the best things you can do as a character in terms of role playing. So it's a completely different element of D&D that you could only use or you could only have in D&D or in a role playing game that I think that I never really used. So if you're a new player, I think you should really invest in trying to understand how to play your character initially as like, let's say, lawfully good, and then slowly towards the as the campaign progresses, choosing actions that might move you towards a different square.
And you don't even necessarily have to change squares. Like we talked about how there's a spectrum within each square. You can even go from the complete lawfully good character that follows the rule for good every time all the way to the very end where you're like just kind of lawfully good, but you're still considered lawfully good.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't trust the law as much, but you still try to follow whenever you can.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely like a lawful good to a lawful evil turn would be kind of an interesting arc to play out.
It should be like a lot of levels to get to that. Otherwise, it is
definitely
it is rushed. But yeah, I get what you're saying with the spectrum, because it is like you do have two things for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could just be focusing on the law, and then towards the end, it's like, no, it's more about good. Like, I'll do whatever is good. The law is just secondary.
Yeah.
But yeah, developing characters that way, and that's the reason why I think the alignment chart gets a lot of shit that it shouldn't. Like, a lot of people look at it as a stupid kind of like barrier, but in reality, like, a true role player should try to be outside of his own.
Yeah, because I would say that exact same argument is the reason why you shouldn't care about the alignment chart.
Okay, so what does that mean?
So the same thing you said, that you could start off in one square and move to a completely different one based on the way that the campaign is changing.
Yeah, but so I think the importance of the chart is that it brings structure to it, and it lets the players know, like, oh, this is what he's doing. Oh, this is what, and it dictates your actions, where it gives you like kind of a chart or a map for you to use.
This is exactly how I would use it. I have it written down as it's a roadmap for my character's decisions.
Yeah.
So when I'm first starting to play a new character or someone who's brand new to D&D, I think alignment is very important, because they can say, I don't really, what would my character do? Let me look at their alignment. Okay, they're lawfully good. So think about, in this situation, what would my character do to maintain lawful good and kind of build like it's a point of reference that you can look at and say, okay, my character's lawful good, so this is what they would do. But I think as the more you play D&D and the more experienced you get role playing, alignment becomes less necessary.
Right.
Because you start to attach traits to your characters, and then later on you can say, oh, I guess that was considered chaotic good. But you get to know your character and kind of, you know what your character would do, whether or not you subscribe to one of these 9 boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of more important to me than fulfilling the requirements for any one of these boxes.
Right, because eventually, as the campaign goes on, you start to build stronger bonds and stuff like that. Whereas once you would uphold the law no matter what, maybe you're willing to bend the law for the benefit of your party or something like that.
Or if you're more experienced playing D&D or a more experienced role player, even if you start a brand new character, you kind of have an idea of what your character is in your mind and how you're going to play them, and that doesn't necessarily have to be lawful good. It could be somewhere in between, or you know. So I think it's important for new players, and maybe when you're playing a new character, to kind of, like a point of reference, like I said, to kind of help you maintain the kind of character that you want to play. For example, I think Xavier could have benefited from this.
Well, so because that is a character that I did want to that I did think about when we were looking at this chart. I guess the struggle was that he was definitely like lawfully good at first.
Yeah.
And as the thing progressed, he started moving away from lawfully good. So he didn't like adhere to just that one spot. He was moving away from that and developing as a character. And I don't think the party took it well. So I think like my question would be, if you are in a party with someone who started off in one section and is slowly moving away from that section, how do you not just like, because I feel like that was seen as like, oh, he just doesn't know how to play the character. But it's like, no, he's changing.
Too quick of a change.
Yeah, I think it was too like
abrupt.
Yeah, because you went from like, I'm not gonna kill bad guys, like I'm gonna pacify them, but that's it, to like, I'll murder this dude, and we were just like, wait, what? Like, what's happening right now? It was such like an abrupt, like jarring moment that I was just like, what is happening? Like, what is like? And to be fair, an argument of that decision, this is a good example of every action doesn't necessarily have to follow that alignment. If you consider him to be lawfully good, but you hate pirates, which is kind of like what happened, and you killed that pirate, characters have flaws for a reason, and that those kind of are there to contradict your alignment. So I can see the argument for you making that action, but for everybody else in the party, it was kind of just like, what are you doing? Like, this is, out of nowhere to us because we don't know your disdain for pirates or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, so then I guess using it as a roadmap is important. The thing that I did wrong with that character was that I did it too quick. I was not following the chart, by the way. I was just like, I wanted to kill the pirate because I wanted to kill the pirate. But yeah.
At the end of the day, it's your character. You can play him the way you want to play him.
Yeah. No, but I do think that's another point too. That the common thing for new players is like, yeah, I mean, I'm playing the game. I should play the game however I want to play the game. Yeah. Which is true, but at the same time, like, to get the most out of a character, you kind of have to follow some type of
because I think that's the thing for any character. You got to have some type of arc or some type of change.
And also keep in mind, you can play your character however you want to, but the rest of the table can too. So if your character is completely at odds with everybody else at the table, there's going to be some friction there roleplay wise. Like, they might want to attack your character. They might just kick your character out of the group. Yeah. Because you can play a chaotic evil character if you want, but if you don't make it mesh with everybody else's goals, then it's not going to mesh well with the rest of the party.
And that's when you got to realize that, obviously there's some type of, like, discourse, like, that's not working here. How can I do character development to change that? Yeah.
This chart does something really good for a DM, and it really helps them make decisions for characters. So, like, because we did a podcast on how to create an NPC. Check it out if you guys haven't done so already. But in that, we didn't talk about this chart, and I think that this alignment chart does really well for building NPCs. Right?
Definitely, yeah.
So to the point where, like, if you build a character that's going to be reoccurring within your campaign, having him be lawfully good and just staying there would be really beneficial, especially if you're throwing something at a party and you don't know how the party's going to react. You at least now you know, like, a lawfully good person would react this way according to or based on whatever the party does.
Yeah, but also have if it's a long-standing NPC that's going to be around for most of the campaign, have them have an arc too. Maybe the players don't see the whole arc, or it doesn't happen only when they're but maybe when at the start of the campaign they meet a guard that's completely lawful good, and at the end they're kind of more vigilante because of the circumstances that have happened to them, and they're kind of like, oh, you're more Batman now. You've changed a little bit. That's kind of cool. Like, they can see that the world is evolving around them and not necessarily always in their sight.
But definitely make them aware of why that change happened. Because I could see, like, if somebody throws an NPC and he's lawfully good, and all of a sudden next time you see him, he's lawfully, or he's chaotic evil, and then the party's like, well, what's going on? And the DM just says, like, well, there's things been going on in the... I would be like, okay, that's just you being stupid.
It provides a good role-playing opportunity. Yeah. Like, your character's gonna be like, yo, what happened, dude? And then the dude can describe or explain or show them what happened in some way.
Yeah, but definitely showcase that change, and then even use that as a way to show some players, like, hey, you've been neutral this whole time. It's okay if you guys if you jump over to, like, one of them. Yeah.
So do you, Gershwin, you like the alignment system?
Now I do, yeah.
You, Sound Alchemist,
now, like, the way you put it, yes, it's great if you don't know what direction to make your character, or for a starting player, it's great, but I feel like it kind of, as you progress through the story, like,
it gets kind of blurry.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's more of a roadmap.
Yeah. So do you think that there's a way that we could change the alignment system to make it more...
No, I don't think so.
Because in 4th edition, I played 4th edition a little bit, and the alignment system was a little different. They had good, lawful good, evil, chaotic evil, and then unaligned, which is basically just everything else that isn't encompassed, I guess. Or they're not, it's kind of neutral in the neutral.
Because I agree with that, because in a way, a lot of these do kind of, like, mesh together, especially the neutral evil, chaotic neutral. Like, you could easily jump around from any one of these three.
Yeah. Like, it was so hard for us to determine what true neutral was, because they're a little bit of everything. Yeah. So it kind of makes sense to... I don't know if I necessarily like that alignment chart better or worse, but it's something to consider. You don't necessarily need all these squares.
You just have a line, a gauge.
because in reality there should be like little squares in between all of these squares that are kind of like
So it shouldn't be a
middle ground.
square. It should be a Venn diagram.
Or like a scale, like
A gauge.
a slider.
But not even that. I think the alignment is so complex that it requires something that's just not like a straight line. I think the more complicated you make the alignment chart, the more freedom you give the player. But at the same time, you also give them structure in a funny way.
Yeah, maybe just the way that the alignment chart is set up kind of either helps or hinders in the fact that there's literal boxes, so you kind of put yourself in a box.
Exactly.
Whereas if it was like a slider,
yeah,
maybe for building a character you need a box, you need something to kind of fill your character in. But maybe for others, the slider is more necessary.
because what is the X and Y in this situation? Well, it would be neutral and
The X is lawful to chaotic, and the Y is evil to good.
oh, okay. Yeah, I think we just need to ascend to the next dimension, and when we have the Y axis, right? No, the Z axis, which means time. Then we can progress and be truly Neil deGrasse Tyson's children. Blessed he be.
Sure, absolutely.
Of course.
Blessed he be.
Be he. This is yeah. The more I think about it, the more I really like the chart. Now, as an experienced player, docile creature, how often do you actually see people using the chart?
Rarely.
Yeah.
Honestly, but I don't necessarily ask people what their alignment is either. Like, it doesn't usually, especially in 5th edition, where it's not as like in previous editions. There's still some of it in 5th edition, but in previous editions, there's like magic items and spells that only worked on certain alignments, or they wouldn't work for other alignments. There's a little bit of that in 5th edition, certain magic items that only evil people get attuned to, or only good people get attuned to. But it's not as black and white, I guess, in this edition.
Yeah.
So as a DM, like let's say you had a player that you knew could benefit from using the chart, how would you get him to use it?
I'd probably I'd put him to this podcast. That's what I would. No, I would sit down with him and kind of describe what each, a little kind of like what we did, and very like maybe name a pop culture character for each square, and kind of say, where do you see your character falling, and kind of explain that they don't have to strictly remain in this box. They don't have to be exactly like that whatever character that comes up. Just use it as a point of reference for when you're making decisions for your character. That the choice isn't obvious to you. So when you come across a moral situation that you're not, maybe it's against your personal choice, like you really want to play an evil character, but in real life you're kind of a good person. So it's like, I got to remember lawful evil right there. It says right in this sheet. I want to try to stick to this. Otherwise, this character is going to turn into a good character.
Right.
Gotcha. I was thinking it would be really cool if you're the DM to give the party examples of the two opposites. So like when we were describing the X and Y, so like giving them a lawful person and a chaotic person, and then making the parties make the decision of like, okay, so who are you going to follow? The lawfully good person or the chaotic evil person, and really define what they are. And then all of a sudden you introduce them into a world where it's like, okay, so follow the chart. I think that would be kind of cool.
And I think it's important, or a cool thing for a DM to do, is introduce NPCs to the characters that are on the whole spectrum of good and evil, that they can get along with. Like maybe they meet somebody that's really nice to them, and they help them out or whatever, and they end up they're lawful evil. Like they're helping the players out for their own ends, and maybe they pull a few favors later that the players aren't going to like. But hey, we like that noble because he's helped us out. When we first came into town, they gave us some money, they gave us some place to stay, but they find out during the course of the campaign it's not necessarily a good person, but he's cool to us, so like we're cool.
Yeah. I think it would be really cool too when you're creating NPCs and if you use the chart and you throw an NPC that's supposed to be lawfully good, like quote unquote, like that's what his title is. He might be like a praetor, or like somebody who's like a police
guard
force
captain.
Yeah. But then you find out he's chaotic evil, And then like
Yeah.
his actions are chaotic evil, but he portrays a new or a lawfully good.
Maybe a guard captain that has ambitions that go
Yeah.
higher, so they're willing on the surface they are be
Mhm.
lawfully good person, but behind the scenes they do whatever it takes to
get
get up the ladder.
Yeah, but the chart itself then is really beneficial for not just players, but also DMs and when they're creating their villains and
Definitely.
their monsters.
Your mainstay NPCs
Yeah.
should definitely.
Creating a trans player would dope.
Yep.
Sure.
Because that's what he is, right? He's lawfully good, but in at his core, he's chaotically evil.
Trans aligned, I guess.
Yep.
Sure.
Let us know in the comment section below how you guys have manipulated the chart to fit your character, or how you've used it to help your players in your D&D campaign if you're a DM. If you guys have any other topics that you guys would like us to discuss, please comment down below. And thanks for watching, guys.
As always, you know us as
That's our creature.
Gershwan.
In the Sound Alchemist, and we will be seeing you guys in the next one.
Always used to put my freedom first in any